In the 14th century, a shadow swept across Europe, the Black Death. Death was everywhere, cities fell silent, and the tolling of church bells marked endless loss. Amid this darkness, a new figure emerged, the Plague Doctor. Cloaked in waxed leather, masked with a long, bird-like beak stuffed with aromatic herbs, he was both a symbol of hope and a harbinger of dread. The beak, filled with juniper and mint, was a desperate attempt at protection in an age of superstition. His cane kept the dying at arm's length, a barrier between life and death. Some saw him as a last hope, others as a sign that all prayers had failed. He treated rich and poor alike, moving through quarantined streets as a lonely sentinel. His methods were crude, lancing buboes, prescribing magical concoctions. Yet within this brotherhood of beaked healers, a darker legend began to stir. Whispers told of one who wore the mask not to heal, but to kill. He was a phantom, a figure whose purpose was far more sinister than medicine. In a world turned upside down, the line between healer and horror blurred. Thus began the legend of a doctor whose shadow was darker than the plague itself. The Plague Doctor was a paradox. Science cloaked in superstition, healer an omen of death. His uniform erased the man, leaving only a symbol: the beaked mask, the waxed coat, the wide-brimmed hat. The beak, stuffed with herbs, was a fragile shield against the miasma believed to carry the pestilence. He became a specter, gliding through blighted streets, anonymous and untouchable. The cane he carried kept desperate hands at bay and examined the sick from a distance. His medical kit brimmed with lancets and strange poultices, desperate tools for desperate times. This anonymity was protection, not just from disease, but from the grief and anger of the dying. If every doctor looked the same, who could tell healer from monster? In the suffocating fear, a predator could hide behind the mask, becoming a human agent of death. The uniform that was meant to save lives became the perfect disguise for evil. In the chaos, the line between savior and killer vanished. The Plague Doctor's mask became a mask for something far more sinister. Amid the chaos, a name began to haunt the plague-ridden cities: Doctor Schnabel. Schnabel means beak in German, a fitting moniker for a doctor whose legend was darker than the plague itself. He arrived like any other, masked and silent, hired by desperate city councils. But soon, the death rate in his wake soared. Healthy and sick alike perished after his visits. Whispers spread. His bag held not just herbs but poisons that mimicked the plague. In a world without autopsies, who could question the doctor's word? He pronounced the pestilence, signed the death certificate, and moved on, leaving a trail of unnatural death. The mask meant to protect became a murderer's perfect disguise. Fear kept people distant, shielding him from suspicion. He was a wolf in shepherd's clothing, exploiting the chaos for his own dark purpose. The legend grew. The man sent to save you might be the one you should fear most. Dr. Schnabel was not just a doctor. He was an angel of death in a healer's mask. His presence turned hope into terror and medicine into murder. The uniform hid his identity, but his legend could not be contained. Thus, Dr. Schnabel became the most feared figure of the plague years. Dr. Schnabel's legend traveled with the plague, haunting every city it touched. From Italy to Flanders, whispers followed him. A doctor whose arrival meant more than just disease. He appeared, worked with cold efficiency, and vanished before suspicion could catch up. No one knew his true name or origin. He moved across borders with uncanny ease. In a world paralyzed by chaos, his crimes were lost in the flood of death. Authorities were powerless, overwhelmed by mass graves and disorder. Investigations were impossible. The faceless doctor always disappeared. Each city added its own horrors to his story. Poisoned wells, stolen jewels, demonic rituals. He became a pan-European bogeyman, a blank canvas for the continent's deepest fears. His legend grew with every retelling, fueled by terror and superstition. Dr. Schnabel was no longer just a man. He was a symbol of betrayal and dread. In the end, he was the embodiment of the plague's darkest anxieties. His trail was not of footprints, but of whispers and fear. The Black Death shattered society, creating chaos where Dr. Schnabel thrived. Trust collapsed, neighbors turned on each other, and the church offered no solace. In this turmoil, the plague doctor's mask became both shield and weapon. The overwhelming death toll was his camouflage. Who would notice a few extra bodies? Poisons mimicked the plague, hiding his crimes in plain sight. Fear of the uniform kept people distant, granting him freedom to act without scrutiny. He entered quarantined homes alone, his deeds unseen and unchallenged. With courts closed and guards overwhelmed, justice vanished. Record-keeping failed. A murderer could simply move on, adopting a new mask. He was a ghost in the machinery of death, exploiting the world's collapse. The chaos was not just his backdrop, it was his greatest tool. In a world on fire, his small, deliberate acts of evil went unnoticed. Dr. Schnabel was the perfect predator for a world in ruins. What drove Dr. Schnabel? Theories abounded, each more chilling than the last. Some believed he was a practitioner of dark arts, harvesting victims for occult rituals. Others saw him as a sadist, reveling in the power to decide life and death. Perhaps he was a broken man, convinced that a swift death was a mercy amid the plague's agony. Each rumor painted him as more than a murderer. He was a force of evil or a twisted angel of mercy. His motives were as shadowy as his identity, lost in the fog of fear and superstition. Was he a collector of souls, a madman, or simply a man who found opportunity in chaos? The truth was buried with his victims, leaving only speculation and dread. In the end, his legend thrived on the mystery of his purpose. Dr. Schnabel's motives remain as impenetrable as his mask. The most terrifying tales spoke of Dr. Schnabel's rituals, acts that blurred the line between murder and the supernatural. Survivors whispered of strange chants and symbols drawn in blood, of bodies arranged in patterns for dark purposes. Some believed he sought immunity through forbidden rites, others that he communed with the dead for knowledge of the plague. These stories amplified his terror, transforming him from killer to sorcerer. He became a scholar of death, a desecrator seeking power or answers in the midst of suffering. The rituals made him a symbol of the evil believed to stalk the world. He was no longer just a man, but a participant in a spiritual war. The legend grew, fueled by fear of the unknown and the supernatural. Dr. Schnabel became the embodiment of the plague's darkest nightmares. As the Black Death receded, Europe was left scarred and haunted. The stories of Dr. Schnabel became folklore, growing with each retelling. Never caught or unmasked, he remained a phantom, his identity lost, his legend immortal. He became a symbol of betrayal, a warning that evil can wear any disguise. His story evolved into a ghost tale, frightening children and adults alike. The Beak Man, the Shadow Doctor. He was said to haunt plague pits and cemeteries. His powers grew in the telling, until he was less a man and more a force of nature. The legend served as a lesson. Trust is fragile, and danger can come from those meant to save. In a traumatized world, his myth gave shape to the incomprehensible tragedy. It was easier to fear one monstrous figure than the faceless terror of a pandemic. Dr. Schnabel, the man, vanished, but the myth became a permanent scar on Europe's memory. His shadow lingers, a reminder of the darkness within humanity. The true identity of Dr. Schnabel remains a mystery, perhaps the greatest part of his legend. Was he one man or a composite of many? A real killer or a scapegoat for a terrified age? The lack of answers is what keeps his story alive. He's a question mark in history, a void filled by our deepest fears. Without a face, he could be anyone, the ultimate unknown. His story is a chilling reminder of the evil that can hide behind a mask. The legend endures because it speaks to timeless fears, disease, betrayal, and the unknown. Even today, the image of the plague doctor unsettles us. What if the healer is the monster? Dr. Schnabel's ghost walks through our imagination, a warning from a world undone by fear. His secrets are buried with the dead, his legend immortal, a shadow that will never fade.